probably plenty of people here who will not hear this if they come in a little bit later. But first thing, as you come in, we've kind of auto turned off your audio and your mic. If for some reason those get turned back on, if you could just mute at some point. It's just a whole lot. We've been developing weird echoes and things, and so it's just a little less distracting for all of us in that case. Second thing is that questions throughout are super welcome. If what you can do is use the chat function that's at the bottom of your Zoom screen here, and you can shoot us a question, and then what we'll do is ask that question to the presenter at whatever moment. The way this will work is the first presenter will go. We'll have a moment for questions after he speaks, and then second one, and so on. So there's Q&A along the way there too. Plenty of time for questions, and we really welcome them. And then the last thing is that we'll be recording this webinar, and so if you know of folks that you know who wanted to come and weren't able to make it, etc., we'll be sending out a link to this, and we'll tweet it and all that kind of stuff, and so people can watch it afterwards. So all of those things. But again, welcome. And so today what we're focusing on is really this idea of experimenting and iterating with technology in adult education. And we have two guests. Thank you, Suzanne. We have two guests with us that are going to share their experiences. The first is John Engel, and he's the Adult Education Director at Community Action Inc. in Central Texas. And he's going to talk, he's going to basically walk us through some of his experiences and some of his insights, as he's really done some great experimenting and iterating in his program. And then second presenter is Jennifer Cobrin, who is from the Mayor's Commission on Literacy in Philadelphia. And same thing, their program has done a whole lot of different things, specifically with My Place, and she'll tell you more about that and the ways that they've really spent the last couple of years experimenting and iterating on this. So super looking forward to this. And I will just hand it off to John.
Greetings to you all. My name is John Engel. I'm the Adult Education Director down here in Community Action Inc. of Central Texas. We operate in the 9 counties surrounding Austin. It's an area about the size of New Jersey. And I had an exciting opportunity to work with a company called CellEd. And CellEd, their main product or service is a method of instruction in English that is totally CellEd and perhaps its utility for helping all English language learners in a state as big as Texas. And they were looking for an organization to partner with CellEd on a pilot project back in 2014. So I was fortunate enough to be selected to be the pilot program, and got working with Allison and Camille and all the wonderful people at CellEd. And I didn't know what I was going to get into, so I just kind of jumped in. And we started in the summer, which is a real slow time for us, typically. Didn't know what to expect. And Allison Asher Weber, who is kind of the innovator behind it at the CellEd, Skyped in and sort of told us what we would do. And then all of a sudden,
So John, your audio is cutting in and out, and I'm not exactly sure.
Are you having trouble hearing me?
Yeah, can you hang on just one second? Suzanne, any thoughts on troubleshooting this? Yeah, you're cutting out enough, John, that we're kind of missing chunks of what you're saying.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
wondering, John, because I'm showing the slide, if you want to turn your video off right now, that'll cut down on the taking on your.
Yeah, okay. Is that better?
Let's try that, and we'll let you know if that's not.
Okay, well, sorry for the technical difficulties, y'all. But at any rate, so the students started calling into the number and getting instruction from the teacher. It's a live teacher, and started texting their answers. And CELED is set up in such a way that the units are kind of short. And I started hearing titters of excitement and aha moments, and I was immediately impressed. It's like, wow, this technology really works once you get it in the hands of ESL learners. So a little bit more about what CELED is. They're not very literate in it, and that's free. And then they have 2 levels of ESL, ESL1 and ESL2, and each of those are about 25 hours. And they are in development phase of ESL3 right now. So lots of students got through the 25-hour curriculum. They were sent really beautiful certificates from CELED. Allison came to visit and did some videoing. CELED has a really great little tracking system, so we could see who was on it, how many minutes a week they were using it. And they reach out to students who aren't using it and texting them and saying, you know, we haven't seen you on CELED lately. Is everything okay? And they let the teachers know too. So there's a lot of communication behind the scenes. One thing they found out is that they used to call learners when they weren't using it. That they found out that the response rate, if they texted the learners rather than called them, was way higher. So people like to text. I mean, that's the thing. And so it was going great. And then one of the primary teachers that was using it said, you know, John, this is really, really great, but these learners can come to our class every day. We need to get the technology into the hands of the learners who can't come during the day all the time because they work nights or they have funny work shifts, or, you know, adults have all these challenges. And so we tried to make a special effort of making it available to people that could not come to class on a regular basis. So, and that started working. And when some of the students that got through actually went on and just went right to work. In fact, Sofia Cordoba, who is from Spain and went through the course, actually ended up working for us. And now she's also sort of an ambassador for CELED at conferences and whatnot. Then we faced a really interesting challenge that I think I wanted to spend the balance of my time on. And that was, I was contracted by the director of custodial services from a large school district in our area. He had a workforce of 200 custodians, 1/3 work days, 2/3 work night. They were 90% Latino and really basically 90% Latina. So it was a female, Spanish-speaking workforce. They were having trouble understanding their supervisors, and without improved English, they would never be able to rise within the division. In other words, when a lead custodian position came open that they were entirely qualified for, except for their English proficiency, they could never get the job. And he was trying to create career pathways, if you will, within his department for these very reliable custodians who just had really, really weak English skills. And as we found out when we started working with them, they had really, really weak Spanish speaking, reading and writing skills too. They just simply did not have much schooling. And problem was, because the director didn't feel that he could give any release time for these classes, and he wanted them to be 100% voluntary, and he wanted them to be open to all the custodians. And the only thing we could think to do was offer classes on Saturdays. And I was thinking, oh my God, classes on Saturdays after working 40 hours a week and all the other things that hardworking people need to do, raising families. I was afraid that the participation would be spotty. I was afraid that there wouldn't be enough intensity, meeting just once a week. And I was also afraid that the Texas Workforce Commission wouldn't even approve it because of the lack of intensity. So I had to come up with a model that I could basically sell to the custodial services director, the teachers, the students, and our funders, the Texas Workforce Commission. So I said, well, how about if we complement, a Saturday class, 3 hours a week, with a major expectation that all custodians will also use CEL-Ed to complement their class time learning. And everybody thought that was a reasonable proposal and encouraged us to try it. So we did. And excuse me, I'm very dry here. And the results were pretty phenomenal. We found that people started using their phones all the time. We started seeing that people started using it at the same time every day on breaks. And they were getting, 10, 15, 20 hours over a 2 or 3 week period and getting through these levels. And one of the students who went through the CEL-Ed thing and the class for about 6 months, when a lead custodian position came up, she was confident enough in her English and she got the promotion, which was just the kind of outcome we were looking for. So it seems to be a really, really great a great language learning tool, especially for Spanish speakers, or really I'll say only for Spanish speakers at this time. I think they're working on expanding their model to other languages, but because the ESL 1 starts out in Spanish and then very pretty quickly goes to all English. So it's very inviting and comfortable for Spanish speakers to get started. So that's just a brief description of some of the ways that we experimented with it and iterated with it, and the next thing that I'm trying to figure out is sort of scalability. How can I scale this thing across my whole program so that everybody's available to it? And that's really a kind of a problem for the company as well as it is for providers like myself, because it involves money. Typically, CEL-Ed will sell a seat for $50 for a year. I got mine for $40. I think because I was a pilot, I don't know, you'll have to negotiate your own deal with them. They'll give you a free trial for sure. But there's lots of concerns. Well, if I buy, 60 licenses or 60 lines or seats or whatever you want to call it, how transferable will it be? People change their cell phone numbers all the time. People drop, and I just transfer. And to CEL-Ed's credit, they try to be as flexible as possible with all that to give you the leeway that you can. So it's feasible I have 60 licenses now. And really in the course of a year, I would say that those are used by probably about 140 learners. So you can get pretty good mileage out of it. Some of my takeaways from CEL-Ed is, it's a great company. The people are fantastic. They have great back-end data and reporting to you. They communicate well. And so that's good. That's always important. And B, I just think that learners really like having their learning tool in their pocket that they can pull out anytime they want on, it's anytime, anywhere learning. And I think, it's not really a surprise. We all love our cell phones. We're on them all the time, and it's no different for learning English. And I mean, I think there are, there's some fairly decent scalability potential if you can budget for it. I think it's a reasonable price. So, and the other thing that I know CellEd's looking at and that I'm looking at is if we could kind of get CellEd digitized so it could just be a real simple interface on a smartphone, I think that would really take off. But the trick is making it simple. So those are my takeaways this far. I see a chat from Barb here. They are interchangeable. They're really good. You just have to communicate with the company and say, this student is not using it anymore. I want to transfer the number, so that works nicely. So that's really all I have for now. I want to give Jennifer some time to talk, and I'll be back around for questions.
John, I have a couple questions before we move on to Jennifer. So mostly from just your experience, kind of from when you started with CellEd and kind of to where you are now, what kinds of challenges did you go through, and how did you get over some of those challenges?
The challenges were not that many, really. I mean, it was, getting everybody used to the concept that they can actually use their cell phones to learn was a little bit of a sell. But when you actually get people to call in, whether they're teacher-like people or people like you or me or learners, especially when you watch learners and you see them light up, because I think they feel power in the fact that they have that learning tool in their hands, it just sort of takes off by itself pretty well, in part because CellEd folks communicate so well. I think the opportunity, to me, it was more the opportunity than the challenge. Like this tool presents an amazing opportunity to reach English language learners that have previously been very difficult to reach by virtue of the fact that they just can't come to class on any kind of reliable schedule for a host of internal and external reasons. Childcare, I don't have to tell the audience what the challenges are for adult learners getting to class, but a tool like this is a really exciting thing. And I think the biggest challenge, I don't know if anybody out there has tried to do much workplace literacy, but the only way I can put it is scheduling literacy classes in a workplace environment is, I don't know, it's crazy. It's very, very, very difficult. There's so many moving parts, and having a technology like this in that kind of context where people have limited time. I mean, working people that need to learn English have really limited time, and this tool is a godsend for that kind of a person.
Okay, one more question, and kind of sort of stepping up a tiny bit of a level. Given that we're talking about experimenting and iterating and all of that kind of stuff, and you strike me as somebody who's like super willing to try things, etc. But what advice would you give folks as they think about just trying a technology with them? What advice would you give them?
Well, my advice would just to be as open as possible. My feeling is, anything we can do to help our learners is worth trying, even if we don't quite understand what it is yet. So I jumped at the chance to do this pilot, even though I had no idea what it was, because if we don't grasp at these different technologies as a way to expand our reach, we're just not going to touch the problem. I mean, in Texas, we have 5 million folks that need our help, and we don't have very much money. And so my advice would be not to look before you leap, just leap.
Nice. Okay, so Barb had a question, and Jessica, I'm going to let you answer the question if you would. Just there's a couple questions around CELED, and John, Jessica's here online too, so we'll just let her answer a few
Thanks,
things.
John, for the kind words. The question was about what does the English, what do we include in our English training? It's built on a life skills approach. We call it essential skills. So in the act of learning English, we're also really trying to help our learners navigate daily life in the United States. So it's how to talk to your doctor, how to apply for a job, how to feel confident when you're talking to your neighbor. And it's very high context and hopefully relatable. We also are, we are an agile tech company. We are constantly rapidly iterating because we can update our content in real time. When things change, we can change the content too. So that's a piece of the puzzle. We go through 30-day rapid iteration cycles ourselves. I hope that answered the question.
Nice, thank you. So why don't we do this? We'll move on to Jennifer, and then again we'll keep a few minutes at the end for more questions, and we can always, Barb, if you're interested, we can connect you with Jessica and CELED, and we'll send links out and all that good stuff too. Okay. So Jennifer Cobrin, let's pass the torch to you.
Awesome. And you can actually go back to that first slide if that's okay. I just kind of wanted to set up the context. And can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, okay, cool. So just a little bit of background about the Mayor's Commission on Literacy. We are a city agency here in Philly. We've been around since 1983. Our primary role is really of an intermediary and capacity building entity for adult basic education, secondary education, and English as a second language programs in Philly. One of our primary services since we opened in 1983 has been connecting adult learners in Philly with services, whether that's, again, ESL, basic education, or like secondary ed, probably in layman's terms, GED programs. And then, so starting in 2014, we totally changed how we connected adult learners in Philly to services. So we went from a loosely based process where our learner would call, give their zip code, and we would give them a few ideas of programs where they could get their GED or learn English as a second language, to a very structured and defined system of adult education in Philadelphia called My Place. And My Place was launched in January of 2014. We use a central database that all of our partners have access to track learner data and outcomes. We currently have 10,000 learners in that central information system. And the My Place program currently includes 4, soon to be 5 central campuses, almost like hubs that the learners go through to get connected to 34 adult literacy partners. So that launched in 2014. And around the same time, we also began to be a little bit more intentional around how we were integrating digital literacy into adult ed and technology, and really make that more of a focus of the Mayor's Commission on Literacy. So we fund and provide technical assistance to community-based organizations called Key Spots in Philly that provide digital literacy trainings. And then we started to build up a program of online classes called My Place Online for adult learners in Philly. Okay, now you can switch the slide. So just to kind of set some context, and then I'll jump back into the online programs that we offer. So Philly has a 25% poverty rate. So 25% of people living in Philly are surviving on a household income of $24,000 or below. And we have the highest deep poverty of the 10 biggest cities in the US. So which deep poverty means your household income is less than $12,000, and we have the highest rate of that. Our dropout rate for schools is about 30%, which leads to 550,000 adults in Philly that are reading at a 5th grade level. There were budget cuts to state-funded adult education programs around the time, or a couple of years prior to 2014, when we started the My Place program. And then we just faced the same, or our adult learners, I should say, faced the same barriers to education that they face in Texas and probably everywhere. Digital skills, transportation, and job and family responsibility. So that's sort of my doomsday speech. And now I'll get back into some exciting and innovative things that we're doing to work on this issue. So you can cut to the next slide. So more about our online offerings. We have 3 right now. The first is a program called My Prep, and our learner management system is Canvas. So all of these programs are offered through Canvas. My Prep is a self-paced online course that offers modules in reading and math, really to help people with high stakes exams. So to get into community college, you have to take this exam. If you don't pass, you have to go into remedial courses and use up your financial aid. When a lot of times, and the same thing for job training programs, you need to get a reading score of 8.0 for a lot of different job training programs. And so these are high stakes exams. And so My Prep is a self-paced course that allows our learners to kind of just get back into the game when it comes to like fractions and, identifying like certain things in vocabulary and these multiple choice questions, so that they can then go back and succeed on these high stakes exams. Digital Skills and Bicycle Thrills is our partnership with the Bike Share here in Philly. It's an online course that focuses on digital literacy and urban biking. So it is a combination of an online course in Canvas and then some face-to-face components like group rides. And the example I give of like a typical lesson would be learning how to use Google Maps to track your bike route. So it integrates kind of the digital skills and the bicycle thrills. And then My Place, Reading and Math. These are cohort-based 6-week online courses that focus on learners at a 4th to 6th grade level. So remember I said that 550,000 of our folks are reading on a 5th grade level. So they're sort of all grouped in that, like 4th to 6th grade is a huge need in Philly. And so these are cohort-based courses. They're 6 weeks long. And they're broken out into math and reading would be like different courses. And one of our teachers, Ann Golden, I noticed that she is on this webinar today, so that she's like one of our awesome teachers, and I'll be talking about how important that is on the next slide. So that's kind of like a summary of our 3 online offerings. And then if you move to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about our iteration and kind of challenges and what we did to address some of those challenges. So the first challenge that we face is with digital skills. And I was thinking about it to prepare for today, and I was like, you know what, it's really like building a new identity as a person that uses technology and integrates technology in their daily life versus somebody that might use technology only for special purposes or like once in a while. So an example of that would be communication skills. So a lot of our learners come to us and they really need to build this voice, this online voice, like in discussion boards. One of our learners was talking about that at a focus group we did recently, about how he really had to learn, like he was used to talking to people, on the phone, in person, text, but then building up this identity of like an online learner and somebody that communicates using email, using discussion boards. And then another example of like a digital identity piece would be kind of a new conceptual paradigm for keeping and sharing information. So one of the things that really trips up our learners is like just the whole concept of saving a document on the computer and then finding it and uploading it back into the course. Like, so if you download an assignment, work on it, you have to save it, come back to it, and then upload it into the course. that is something that like really trips up our learners for like a month sometimes. And I think it's just the idea, it's not just the skill of like, we can teach them the steps to like upload and download, but it's like building this whole new way of thinking about how you share and keep information that's like really different if you're only used to doing it on paper. And then the third example is just like, or just thing I wanted to say is that we find digital skills is like, we expected it to be secondary to the content, but it's really, we found that it's not. We have like a short orientation course that introduces learners to Canvas and helps them with like some basic digital skills. And we thought, okay, we've prepared them. Now they can go on to their class, like their reading or math class or whatever it is online. And that really wasn't true. So the same learners that were having issues and learning digital skills in that orientation, like continued to find that to be a challenge. So just as much as like fractions is a challenge in our online math course, so is uploading and downloading. So that really, we thought it would be like a secondary thing to the content and that the learners would kind of pick it up, but it really is not. And I think, again, it comes back to that like kind of digital identity idea of like, you're really forming a new idea of who you are and a new paradigm for you know, your way of thinking and using technology. Secondly, just the idea that people are really critical to knowledge, especially when it comes to higher order thinking skills like applying knowledge, and that you can learn something online, but in order to like really apply it and use it, I think you need people. Like, for example, for Cell Ed, like you can learn English, but then your people are the people you're like speaking English to, right? Like that's how you learn. You learn something maybe, you know, online, and then you apply it. And it's in that interaction with someone else that you really are able to like stretch and push your knowledge. And so with the example of ESL, like maybe you learn a vocabulary word and then you go out and you like say it in the world and someone corrects you or someone makes a funny expression because you said it wrong. And you really like, I think that's how you learn to like apply knowledge. It kind of goes back to like, if anybody's familiar with like Vygotsky and like the zone of proximal development, it's like you need peers and facilitators and tutors to help facilitate that knowledge and really push you to a place where you can use it. So one example of that is one of our learners was talking about how like he went from kind of knowing how to, you know, add and subtract fractions on just by like reading about it in the class and doing a worksheet on his own. So he kind of like got the concepts, but then he used sorry, and I'm reading this comment about how Canvas can be tricky to manage. The key to education is interchange with other learners. Totally. Yes, Stephen, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's so important. And anyway, so the learner example, he learned how to like add and subtract fractions in the abstract, but it was really through peer discussions and working with his teacher that he learned how to apply that to real life situations. And so we have a discussion board and it gives an example of like, you have a certain amount of dog food. How do you dole that out so that you know when you need to buy more dog food, right? Based on the amount of dog food your dog eats every day stuff. So, and the learners all talk about it in the discussion board and really engage in like that real life application of fractions. And so when we were talking to this learner that had gone through that class, he said, and we had sandwiches set up that day for lunch, and he said, I can see how you would divide the sandwiches based on the number of people. And he's like, I now see fractions everywhere. Like I see it in the world around me because he was able to take what he learned on his own and like really start to apply it and in the course with interactions with peers and his teacher, and then continue to apply it like out in the real world. And then my third example is just like connecting people to new topics in ways that are fun and not stressful. Like, for example, we used to teach digital skills by having people work on, and specifically the skill was how to format things in Microsoft Word by taking a cover letter, because we thought, oh, these are mostly people that are, you know, interested in jobs, applying for jobs, they're unemployed. So we'll fit job readiness into digital literacy. And keep in mind that this was like one of the first lessons that they did. And what we found is that actually like writing a cover letter is really, really stressful for people. It just, so changing that up and making it like, instead of editing a cover letter, editing a recipe or editing like, a paragraph about like a sports team, and being able to choose something that that you naturally like grab, like an interest topic, and something that's like not inherently scary and stressful, like job searching, was just something that I think really resonated with our learners and help beat back that anxiety and help them to grow, and reduce like the stress in learning. So I think I will stop there and see what other questions and comments people have.
I always have questions. So I have two, but I'm going to start with just one. And so I think what you're telling us in this particular slide and these examples, which were great, I think what you've told me in the past was that these are kind of lessons learned at this point, right? So have you been collecting data? Have you been, like, did you do an evaluation? Like, how did you get to this? And then the follow-up to that is, what kinds of ideas do you have to kind of address some of this?
So in terms of evaluation pieces, we use Google Drive to track learner outcomes. So just things like who started the class, how many weeks did they complete, who finished the class. And one of the things that we did early on is look at like when are learners dropping out. And what we found is that a lot of our learners are dropping out. Like if they're going to drop out, they're going to drop out in weeks 1 or 2. So like, what can we do to make weeks 1 and 2 really engaging and not as like, frankly, like kind of easier and more fun, so that they don't drop out. The other thing we started to do is learner focus groups with learners that completed. So we kind of got them all together and we're like, what did you like? What was the, exciting for you? Why were able to complete this? What was challenging? And then calling, because they're just harder to track down, learners that didn't complete and dropped out. We like, well, what was it? Why did you stop? And trying to gather that information. We also do pre and post tests embedded into the class. We found that trying to get all of our learners to come back for a standardized post test was really, really hard. And so we just embed them now. They're not like perfectly standardized or whatever, but we have like quick and dirty pre and post tests in the classes, so we can track like knowledge gain. And then we also do an evaluation with all of our learners. And I think in terms of like challenges, I think digital literacy, huge, getting people to persist and then complete the course, a big thing. And then just what we've learned is like a lot of our folks had like frustration, anxiety, stress. So like, how do you reduce that?
Oops, I should unmute, sorry. Interesting. So these lessons learned now, like your next step is to sort of think through how to address some of this. I mean, yeah, I'm getting at the iterate angle here. Because my guess is, in just knowing how you guys work, that you're thinking through how do we improve it and those sorts of things. And so I'm just curious as if you wanted to share any of those thoughts at this point.
Yeah, I mean, so we engaged in like kind of a quick and dirty like evaluation over the summer, right? With some of the pieces I talked about, the focus groups, the phone calls, the pre and post tests. And what we're doing now, we interviewed our facilitators as well to get their perspective. And so what we're doing now is picking like, okay, so from all that evaluation data, what are like our top 5 or 10 action steps that we're going to be implementing this fall? One of them, just based on the feedback that learners really apply knowledge through interactions with others, is like creating some face-to-face components for the courses that were only online. So that's a big thing. So fleshing that out will happen this fall. But I would say just like my best advice would be like at least, once a year. I know it's hard to find the time for practitioners out there, like do a quick and dirty evaluation, talk to your learners, talk to your teachers, look at your courses, look at the research, and then take that information, analyze it, and pick like, what are your top 5 things that what are your action steps based on the information that you've gathered?
Yeah, great. Okay, anybody else have questions now that I've asked it done? Let me unmute again. At this point, if you want to just unmute and ask the question, you're welcome to do that. If there's anybody who's got questions out there for either for Jennifer or for John or even Jessica, who is here for SolEd, or amongst yourselves, any of that. Anyone? No?
Well, this is Suzanne. I'm also from Digital Promise, but I had a follow-up for Jennifer. Can you talk a little bit about the face-to-face, how you're going to integrate that into the online learning? Do you have specific plans yet for that you could talk about?
Wow. At a Digital Promise event, I was introduced to somebody that runs learning communities, which are like kind of informal communities of practice made up of learners, usually guided by like a tutor or someone more as facilitator and guide on the side. And the role of the learning community is to meet like once a week or however often to go through like challenging aspects of the online course. And the idea is that all the learners in the learner community are taking the same online course at the same time. So that's kind of something that we're looking at, developing. And the implementation of that is like, do we use a tutor or volunteer to facilitate that? Where is it going to be? What partner do we use? Like a lot of the logistics of getting that sorted out. But we really feel like that will help us boost our retention and persistence rates for the courses.
So there's a question from Stephen in here asking whether or not you could build that on Canvas.
I mean, we can, but I think the point is to make it face-to-face. Like Canvas has communities, but my experience is that communities has been really mixed, like trying to get these online discussion boards or groups going, unless it's something like people are really interested in, like Justin Bieber or like gardening or something. It's like hard to get people to talk about like math in an online community. That's just been my experience, or like a work thing. So we're trying to do that face to face, I guess. Yes, you must see the eyes of the people. That's right, to get them like face to face engaged. Steven, you're really on a roll there. We like your comment in the chat box. That's really cool to read that.
I don't think we can include the chat box in the recording. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a bad thing. I'm not sure. Kidding.
I'm personally a big fan of blended learning. I've tried just tech only, distance ed only, and it's been a complete failure for me. But if you can integrate the technology into classes where they're already getting to know each other and helping each other, I think things get exponential quicker. I wouldn't even try to do the distance, tech only. I have tried it and we got nowhere. So I'm a big advocate of blended learning. I should say that all those custodians made major gains, even though they came to class on Saturday using SolEd. Because we have to use a baseline and progress assessment. And combined, nobody ever got more than 60 hours, which is what they recommend. We test them. They all, they got less hours, but they all made substantial gains. So it works.
I know I said I wasn't going to actually ask you this, John, but now I'm going to. I know that you've got some new stuff going on there that you're trying at this point with Chromebooks, et cetera. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I would love to.
Actually, can I just?
Sorry, Ann.
Let me just jump in. There are a couple of follow-ups before, and we will get to the entrepreneurship one. But if in the chat we had a question about how, if you've built in the face-to-face with SolEd, John, and then John, you can talk about it, or Jennifer, about what sort of extrinsic motivation tools have you tried? So John, do you want to talk about how you work face-to-face in with SolEd?
Well, you know, we introduce Cell Ed to all of our students in all of our classes, and that's really all we do, and we encourage them to call. And the only place we were really really focused on making sure that everybody did it was in this workplace literacy class, and the teachers got more engaged with Cell Ed than maybe I wish my teachers in the regular program would be as engaged with Cell Ed as those teachers were. You know, the extrinsic motivation probably applies more to my Chromebook example, so I'll kind of hold off on that for a minute.
You know, I can jump in on the face-to-face. You know, we have two models. We have the blended approach, but we also have a standalone, because although 80 to 90% of our courses are automated, you're listening to a recording of our teachers, and then the two-way texting can confirm the understanding. We have a live coach that you talk to over the phone. We meet learners where they're at. So if they've got a basic phone, it'll be a conversation or a text. If they have other forms of connecting with their coach, we do it that way, but it's all via mobile.
Jennifer, do you have anything to share about extrinsic motivation tools?
I mean, we've tried like gift cards and things for learners in order to come back and finish the course and do a post-test, and I'm not opposed to that kind of thing. But I think the biggest, I don't know if this is extrinsic or intrinsic, but like just connecting, like all of our learners are adults and they have really specific goals. Like I want to get into this specific nursing program, or like I want to get my GED so I can, like, you know, not have a minimum wage job anymore. And so like I think the more you can connect the learning in real tangible ways to like helping them get to those goals, like specific, in many cases, goals that they have, and like helping them see, connect the dots between this course so they can learn fractions to like the test that they need to get into like that nursing program that's starting in March is like the most motivating, you know, because I think the question's right. Like you're not like in sort of learning for the sake of learning is not necessarily like something that people come to us for. Like they're not like, I have a love of fractions, let me learn more. It's more like, I hate fractions, but I need to pass this test to get into this like nursing program, right? So I don't know if that answers the question.
It does, and there was one more that that's just come through and scrolling up my thing. For consistency and persistency, what kind of weekly expectations or what kinds of ideas do you guys employ there? Go ahead, Jen.
Okay. So we have weekly assignments and discussion boards that all we go on like a traditional academic point system, and you need a certain number of points you need to get an 85% on all your assignments to graduate or to finish the course. And so, you know, we have a very defined structure where we have assignments that are due certain days of the week, and the learners need to complete them. That's for our cohort-based courses. For the self-based, or you know what I mean, course, we have a plan that the learner comes up with through the facilitator that's saved on Google Drive, and then they have they have to finish certain modules and certain assignments like on a timeline, and the facilitator will check back with them like usually multiple times a week or at least once a week on their progress.
We don't have any specific expectations beyond the fact that we expect them to come to class and we expect them to do homework assignments, we encourage them to embrace Cell Ed and other applications that they can find on their own on their cell phones. I mean, Duolingo and things like that. But you know, at the front end, everybody kind of signs a learner contract that they're committed to learning. But I really agree with Jennifer. Our biggest problem is if we can get them past the first 2 weeks, we've got them. But So I took it to heart when she said, you know, make that first 2 weeks a little bit more enjoyable, and you might get a good payoff. I think that's a simple yet clever strategy.
Yep. Great. Okay, where are we coming to? So I know there was another question around assessments, but Suzanne, it looks like you're actually answering that and putting in a link. Thank you. So John, let me go ahead and let you talk super briefly. We don't have that much time about your newest program that you're trying to get off the ground.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know how many of you all are affected by the passage of WIOA, but now, you know, career pathways, integrated education and training is getting to be the new thing. And that can be kind of challenging for ESL learners in Texas and elsewhere, where we have a tremendous amount of learners that are not documented to work. So training them for a job that they can't apply for is a difficult concept for me to wrap my head around. However, there is one little part of the law that allows for entrepreneurial training. So we asked the powers that be, may we develop an entrepreneurial training class for ESL learners with our money. And they were actually very excited that we would want to pilot that. And we've done 3 iterations of it so far. And to get to the extrinsic motivation question, I asked the Texas Workforce Commission, well, you know, if we're going to teach them how to start their own business, they might very well need a tool to start their own business. So how about if we buy everybody in the class a Chromebook? Chromebooks are affordable. You can get them for $200. And then how about we let them take them home? And boy, that was the big thing. When you let somebody take their Chromebook home, they started using it for all the things that everybody uses technology and the web for. I mean, their digital literacy went up quick. And then we also said to the students, if you complete the requirements of the entrepreneurial course, which is really, it's just like an academy. You pull people out of ESL class and they just cover various aspects of business basics over 8 3-hour classes. So it's not a huge commitment. We bring in bankers, we bring in you know, people that started their own businesses and whatnot. But if they complete the requirements and they present their business plan at the end of the class, we tell them you can keep Chromebooks so you have a tool to manage your business with. And it's really resonating with the community that we serve. And then, you know, I started doing some research and found out, lo and behold, that my hunch was right, that our learners would respond to this. 87% of the businesses started in the United States between 2011 and 2014, which is the latest data we have, were started by Hispanics. And that's by and large the ESL population that we serve. So there seems to be some sort of cultural resonance. I'm so excited by the way the Chromebooks sort of quickly transform their, well, they just seem to do away their digital anxiety pretty quickly. That I want to the extent possible, I want to get them in all my classrooms. And I'm going to budget for it incrementally, and sort of the teachers that are the squeakiest wheels, I want to try it, well, they'll get first grad. And I'm going to see how far I can go with it. Because the results for this entrepreneurial thing have been just fantastic. And if anybody wants to talk more about that offline, I'm sure that Patty and Suzanne will disseminate our emails and contact information. I've got a PowerPoint I can send you. We've done one presentation on it at the state conference. And we're just excited it's going to be about it.
Just a really quick question. How are you funding this? Particular,
well,
like how are you getting the Chromebooks and then giving them?
I'm just a regular state and federally funded adult education grantee. So I asked the state administrative agency if I could try it. And they said, yes. So I haven't quite asked them about, can I try and do it in all my classes? I don't want to, I don't want to freak them out. But, I think if it's allowable for a specific entrepreneurial class, I mean, everybody's trying to get people engaged with digital learning. I mean, even the stodgiest bureaucrat knows that we've got to do this. So that's what I thought. It's just a matter, it's a matter of what you prioritize in your budget. And even at $200 a pop, you could go broke.
Yeah,
So,
well, that was why I asked the question. It was around like they get to keep the
I
Chromebook.
can't do that. I can do that with the entrepreneurial cohorts because they're small. And I did have some special startup funding for that, and I don't know how sustainable the concept is. But it sure motivated people to come, and it motivated people to complete, and their digital learning went way up, way fast.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, that's not a very technical evaluation, but that's John's evaluation.
Great. Okay, so we are just about out of time, and so I want to thank both John and Jennifer for taking the time to share your experiences with us, and Jessica, also you too. Thank you for attending and being able to clarify certain kinds of questions that folks had and everything else. That's awesome. Thank you. And like we said, we were recording this. We will send for those of you who registered, which you did to get here, we'll send out links to the recording so you can share that with folks if you want to. And then also we'll have links, contact information for both John and Jennifer and for ourselves, and a couple other resources there, links to CellEd, a couple other things that were mentioned here. So again, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.